Welcome to the Popcorn Effect, the podcast where education, leadership, and innovation come together to spark powerful change. Just like popcorn bursts into something greater, we explore ideas, stories, and strategies that transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. So, whether you're an educator, a leader, or an innovator, this is your space to ignite creativity, challenge the status quo, and lead with purpose. Tune in, get inspired, and get ready for a poppin' good time as we hear from innovators, inspirational, and passionate educators who are creating the popcorn effect wherever they go. I'm your host for this adventure, Sandra Donaghue, and we're going to meet a guest who is a leader in creating the popcorn effect wherever she goes. She is a cell champion. We're going to figure out what that means. She is a systems thinker for sure, lifelong learner, innovator, a change maker, and a person who comes from a gorgeous island that we all want to visit one day. And she happens to be a friend of mine. Welcome, Kecia McDonald. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yes. I am super excited because I love this idea that I'm, over here and you're there in Hawaii. I can see the sun blasting through, which is, making me just a little jealous, but nonetheless, I'm thrilled to have you on. And I am super excited for you to explain what exactly is your current role. Because since I've known you, you've had many evolutions of different roles. And I know that you have lived in different spaces. So, how does one become a cell resource teacher? And what has that journey been like for you?
Well, I don't know if I can say how it is for everyone to become an SEL resource teacher. SEL, as we say here, social and emotional learning. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do feel very lucky to have this position, and I do feel very lucky to live in an environment where SEL is a priority and it's deemed so important that we need to have people whose job revolves around looking specifically after those durable skills. I don't call them the soft skills anymore. I call
Oh,
them durable skills,
oh, I love that.
and recognizing the importance of growing humans, right? It's not just about
Yeah.
the academics, it's not just about the test scores. So, in terms of my journey and how did I get here, um, I started out as a part-time teacher and a substitute teacher, and then I qualified as a full-time teacher, and I was working at a school as a health teacher. So I'm certified in K to 12 health. That's my
Mm,
background. And that's when I first became very passionate about social emotional learning because of the fact that, again, health isn't just being able to do push-ups and run the Ironman marathon or whatever, right? Health is about how you are mentally, socially, emotionally, financially, physically, all of the things. And so that's what really started my pursuit and passion of all things social and emotional. Um, so I worked in the classroom as a health teacher for a few years. And
mm-hmm.
again, with my students, I really focused on those areas. So, and then I became a curriculum coordinator at the school level. And then I became a test coordinator and a Title I coordinator. And for those who aren't familiar with Title I, it's the program where schools who have high populations of the socioeconomic group that is maybe a little bit depressed and underrepresented, they get
Oh,
extra
okay.
funding to
Oh,
try
okay.
to
Yeah, yeah.
for equity, yep, to try to uplift areas of our communities that maybe don't come from as prosperous beginnings.
Okay.
So I started becoming just interested in how we use our systems and our structures of support to support those underserved populations. So I got a lot of structural view of that. And then I moved up to our complex area, working with 19 schools, first with multilingual learners.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the whole equity, it's a special population. How are we serving that population? They come with their own challenges, right? And their own backgrounds and
Mm-hmm.
cultural differences. So I've had kind of a long journey getting to this point, and then starting out now being responsible for social emotional learning, looking at how we're integrating social emotional learning in tier one instructional practices. So for every child in every classroom, everywhere. And then how are we really looking for those pockets of populations that probably need even more support in those areas?
Wow, that is no small task, Kecia, but I love that focus. And it's so evident that it's such a passion of yours because the whole time you're talking, you're smiling, which I love. And you can just sort of feel it because you have to be passionate about this kind of work in order to do it authentically and genuinely. And I know that part of your role, like you have that you have to be going in and you're dealing at the district level, and so people are looking to you for guidance, support, ideas, etc. So obviously the passion is there. So is this like, would you say that this is sort of your kind of dream kind of job? Is this something that you have sort of aspired to? Because it sounds like it's right up your alley, and it's from way back when you first started. So is this kind of one of your main passions?
Absolutely. So our system of hiring and how jobs open and everything, just when I saw the job posted,
Yeah,
I just was like, oh my gosh, those were the words out of my mouth. This is my
right.
dream job.
I
Because
can tell.
I loved the work I was doing. I loved the work
Right.
I was doing. I had built great relationships, and I was starting to get traction and see outcomes in some of the things that we wanted to see change. I'm a big, as you say, a systems and structural change
Yeah.
person. And I was really getting traction. And so it seemed a little bit crazy, probably, to go off in a completely different direction in a new role,
Hmm.
but it absolutely is my passion. And I just think it's of such critical importance. So I interviewed in February. I was notified I got the job. And then the interesting thing was in June and July, when the state was starting to come out with their top priorities,
Okay.
they announced that SEL across all grade levels is one of their top three priorities.
Oh, you're
So
that's
it's like it's
phenomenal.
always been important to me. It's always been critical to me, but then also it suddenly is under even a larger focus, a larger priority across our entire system, across our state. So,
That is
you
that's
know,
so amazing though, because like you said, when you're like, this is my dream job, and then for then the state to say, yes, this is a priority, and we are going to honor that. Wow, when the stars align, they really aligned for you. But that is phenomenal. I'm just thinking, how do I get myself a Kecia McDonald at my school? This is all
yeah,
my brain is thinking. But I'm also thinking, because we've had this conversation many times about leadership, right? And all the different definitions of leadership. And you got to ask, like, okay, but why, like, Kecia, how come you never went into administration?
right.
Sort of what has held you where you are? Has there been something that has prevented you from doing that? Or is it a conscious choice, or is it because of the opportunities you had? I don't know what those answers are, but maybe you could share a little bit about, kind of your leadership role and
Yeah,
your perhaps intention behind not doing admin.
yeah. So, so I moved to Hawaii 10 years ago.
Right.
And I'd been living in South Africa for about 20 years. And so I'm a later in life educator. This
Okay.
isn't just a midlife career change for me. This was like my eighth or ninth um, career. I owned a bed and breakfast for a while. I
Oh
owned
my
a
gosh.
cafe where I served coffee. I've had lots of different jobs. And
Kecia,
so
you
I
earned a cafe where you serve coffee? I love coffee.
Well, it was called the Garden Cafe. So I had a nursery. I sold
Oh
plants
my
and then
gosh.
served coffee and tea.
Oh my God.
Um, so
I love this. Yeah.
this is my ninth year as an educator, but I think
Wow.
because I came to the profession later,
Yes.
I already had a kind of larger wealth of experience in the world, right?
Hmm.
I had been a Peace
Yeah.
Corps volunteer, so I
Oh my God.
literally lived in a mud hut in the wilds of Africa, speaking another language and dealing with villagers living with no electricity or running water. And then I
Oh
lived in
my God.
South Africa, during this massive time of change. Obviously, I had already become a mother. So I
Oh wow.
had a whole bunch of different skill sets, if you will, strengths and
Yeah.
gifts and talents. And becoming an educator later in life, I think I just pretty quickly started taking on those informal leadership
Yes.
roles.
Yes.
And fairly early in my career, my principal asked me to be a temporarily assigned vice principal, and I just said no. I don't want to do that. I want to be a colleague.
Yeah.
I want to stand, I don't want to be at the tippy top of the pyramid where things hopefully trickle down. I want to be up from, the bottom of the pyramid pushing up and holding hands with others and like all moving together. So it was definitely a conscious choice to not
Mm-hmm.
go into admin. And later on in my career, another just mentor, amazing person kind of came to me and said, you should go into the administration program. You would
Right.
be a great administrator. And I again, like respectfully, graciously, thankfully, thank you for that, for noticing or for complimenting me. But I don't want to go that direction. I don't ever want to be evaluative. I always want to just be
Yeah.
supportive. And I want to work as a colleague and not as a boss. And not
Yeah.
to say anything bad against bosses, because,
No.
my favorite saying is when I don't know what to do, I ask my boss.
Yeah.
When I'm stuck, and it doesn't happen often that I get stuck. I'm a pretty good
Yeah.
researcher. I like to dig around. I like to solve my own problems. But when I get stuck, I like knowing that my boss is there, that I can tap them and say, hey, I need help.
Right.
So I'm not saying anything against administrators.
No.
I'm just saying that for me personally, I really like to like lead from the ranks, as you will, and not, I also know that administrators deal with a lot of things, right? Like
Yeah.
burst pipes in the building, or there's not enough toilet paper, or things not working. I mean, that's a lot. Like, I don't want to deal with that. So, administrators
Yeah.
juggle so many balls that don't
Right.
focus on education, obviously, very operational.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted my focus to remain educational and not operational and instructional and
Yeah.
supportive versus like I have to make sure the buses get out on time or that the master schedule is developed or, admin really do so many amazingly crazy things, and I've just never felt
Yeah.
the call to partake in those things. So that's
Mhm.
part of the answer why.
Yeah, no, you know what? I think it's fabulous because I think what I'm really hearing from you is you just continue to remain authentically who you are and what you wanted, and you weren't being swayed by a title or I don't know, a new opportunity. You're very committed to your craft, to doing what you do, finding that passion, and then going out and sharing it. And, that's leadership. Like that is leadership. And we need innovative, creative educators in our school spreading all of that and, making that magic happen across the system. And you do have such an opportunity for such incredible system impact. And I love that. And as I said, I'm taking notes about how I'm getting myself a Kecia McDonald in my school. But because this is the type of stuff that we know, every part of education serves an incredibly important role. And we need very,
Absolutely.
very dedicated, classroom teachers. We need extremely dedicated system people. We need extremely dedicated administrators. We need our superintendents, our supervisory officers, all of those things, our directors. They have to be incredibly passionate, grounded, and extremely committed to their roles, but also their system impact. So I love that. I think it's wonderful. But I know you've been asked that question probably many, many times because you have those types of qualities. And so people would be like, hey, come, we need you, which is a great thing to, be. The paths in front of you are always ever unfolding as it seems,
Yeah.
and that's great. And I love all of this journey that you've been on, which I believe probably really fuels so much of what it is that you bring to your current role because you have so many of your own personal lived experiences and your commitment to learning because I know you're always investing in yourself. And I do want to talk about like how do you keep your own, your oil heated and your passion going for what you do, and the opportunities that come to you?
It's funny the crossover between the two, leadership and learnership, right? Um, one
Yeah,
of my one of my favorite mentors here in the state of Hawaii says everyone's a leader, everyone's a learner, or
yeah.
everyone's a learner, everyone's a leader. So, no matter what position you hold, no matter what role you hold, you have the opportunity for leadership. And I also firmly believe in learning, just perpetual learning. We always, there's a buzzword, lifelong learners. We want our
Yeah,
students to be lifelong learners, right?
yeah.
And then sometimes if we don't, we're not pushing ourselves to be learners, you're not modeling that on that deeper level. But for me, I can't help myself. I have so many interests and so many passions, and I am always taking classes and courses.
Hmm.
I have taken advantage of like fellowships, right? Where
Yes.
either I had the opportunity to travel to Peru and visit schools in Peru and see things there, and I've had the opportunity to be a part of a cohort to learn about restorative justice through circle keeping. And again,
Love.
I was able to not only do the professional development, but then to travel to the state of Colorado, which is well known for having restorative practices well embedded in their school system, and to see it in person, and then try to always see these greater, bigger things, and then try to take a little piece of it and bring it back to Hawaii to implement here.
Yeah.
So between taking classes, between connecting with educators in a global space and a global community,
Hmm.
learning about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and all the work that the UN does to try to make true global citizens of our children.
Yeah.
I'm a board member on HISTE, which is the Hawaii affiliate for ISTE,
Oh,
the
yes.
International Society for Technology and Education. So trying to keep abreast of what is happening in the tech world. So yeah, I always am throwing myself at opportunities. And I think that, first of all, models what we want to see in our systems. And
Yeah.
second of all, just gives me that larger perspective so that if a little kernel of something is
Yes.
going over there,
Yeah.
right, then I'm like, oh, wait, I remember reading that article or seeing that or talking
Hmm.
to a colleague. Let me connect you with that resource, right?
Right.
And so it not only makes me a better leader and learner, it also makes me a better colleague so that I can connect others to those ideas or resources that maybe didn't come across their desk.
Right. Yeah, love that because how you're fueling yourself is with all kinds of different opportunities, and then you're able to spread those kernels and let other people, pop. Because I always think about that because we kind of that's sort of what we do. Like we have to put stuff out, see what sticks. Oh, hey, I saw this thing. I'm connecting it back to you. Having those types of conversations because also you spoke about it before and earlier is because you understand and you're recognizing and honoring that relationship, right? And that colleague to colleague relationship has incredible value. And I think people as educators, they like to learn from each other. And so
Yeah.
it's wonderful that they have someone like you that they can tap into as a resource, but then also to learn from and with, and then you can go on and you continue to grow. And it's also fabulous because, you have so many different models happening across the, United States, so you have opportunities to learn from all the different spaces and places as well, right?
Yeah.
Which is great because I know from state to state things are different. There's different focus, there's different, curriculum, et cetera. Very similar here in Canada. So it is nice though to see what's happening in other places, and then what are the little nuggets that you can take from those other spaces and then bring into yours, right? Which I love. And Hawaii being unique in many other ways that you can then share with other people because you've certainly shared some of the innovative things that you're doing in Hawaii and then making all these wonderful things happen. Like this focus on the cell is beautiful and it's wonderful. I really hope that is able to spread and people really see how important that truly is, right? For all of
Yeah,
our learners.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's important. Again, not only sharing what's best about what's happening where you are, but when
Yeah.
you pull those little pieces from other places to definitely align it and assimilate it with like, again, our culture here is very different from the mainland United States
Yeah.
culture, right? So
Sure.
I might go to a conference and learn something, but then I always want to come back and bring it through that lens of who's in front of me, who's in the room, what are their lived experiences. Um,
Exactly.
but it's also like I think about when I was teaching my health class, and because I lived in Africa, I actually got malaria, and
Oh,
I taught about malaria
right.
in my class, and so I have a room full of kids who are like, how have we never heard of this before? How is
Hmm.
it that 500,000 people a year are dying from a mosquito bite, and we're not aware of it?
Right.
And so when you tease out those pieces from other parts of the world, it just builds that empathy, it builds that perspective, and it brings
Hmm.
it home to the people who are in front of you, who might
Hmm.
not, like, again, sharing stories, sharing lived experiences, they might not have heard of it, but it definitely adds this element or dimension of, again, empathy, understanding, and perspective that then they might not ever get malaria, they might not
Right.
experience it, but they can carry that empathy and perspective with them wherever they go. So, that's another part of the levels of the layers of the learning, right?
That's
And
right.
always kind of like seeing other things and knowing what's best about where you are, but also pulling little threads from other places as well.
And that's that globality that we're seeing, right? And I mean, that's how we got connected online. Three Sunday Sparks with a large group of educators from all over the world, and we get to learn from and with each other, and we take little pieces from all of that, and it's so wonderful because I think it also speaks really to the heart and soul of the cell work that you do as well, because you're always
Yeah,
trying to cultivate that opportunity for seeking to understand, and then to learn in community with others. So I
yeah,
just wanted to think about one, maybe because again, you've been a person who's been in multiple different roles over over your career. And so what maybe are like one or two little pieces of advice that you would offer to, the young educator getting started, or, the educators in general, or anybody who's listening to us today?
right. Well, going back to that kind of phrase, just remember that everyone's a leader, everyone's a learner.
Beautiful.
There's no such thing as quote unquote just a teacher,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Every teacher is a leader in whatever capacity where they are. Um, and again, the more you're learning, the more you're bringing that back and you're diffusing that with your kids, and they're
Yes.
going to benefit from that. So
Right.
again, I think holding on to those things, I know it gets hard and you can get so, grounded down in all the things that you need to do, but
Yeah.
to me, like, self-care, if you will. I'm a little tired of that word, I have to admit, but
Yeah.
you're investing in yourself,
Hmm.
by being a leader and by being a learner. And then because you're investing in yourself, you just are that much more effective and impactful with whoever's in your realm, whether that's a classroom, whether that's the building office, wherever
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
So I would say, keep your eye on those maybe greater things, even when you're ground down with stacks of grading, or, did I attend that meeting, or do I
Yeah.
have to give all the feedback? Just remember, you are a leader, you are a learner. And if you keep your eye on that larger kind of focus, I think it'll help you to get through a lot of things. And as you're growing and learning, that enthusiasm and passion will also trickle down to whoever you're working with, whether, again, it's students or colleagues.
Oh, fair enough. I love those phrases that you shared because they are so important. And I think sometimes, we've heard that so often. You're just us, but we're not. We are, and we can remove that from our vernacular. That would be really good. And I know that you're committed to that type of work and helping people to expand their vision of who they are and what they have to offer, and tapping into that in, you know, the students that are in front of us, and then the colleagues that we're sitting side by side, and hopefully spreading that, you know, wider and wider. So because you're so fabulous, Kecia, where can people find you? Because they're going to want to learn more about you and tap into your fabulous energy.
Well, I am on X, right,
Mm-hmm.
formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's just my last name, McDonald, with underscore my first name, Kecia, Kecia. That's
Yes.
probably the first place to start.
Okay.
I'm also, I am on Instagram, but that's a little, I'm a traveler and I'm a
Yes.
mom, and the Instagram is kind of much more about those things, but
Mm-hmm.
everyone's welcome. I have a public profile, and that's what Hi, is like Hi stands for Hawaii, so what
Yes.
Hi see. Yes.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to connect. And again, we have virtual spaces we meet in, whether it's on
Mm-hmm.
Zoom or whether it's on the audio spaces on X, and there's all kinds of communities where you can find me, but that's probably the best place to start.
Yeah, and if you do want some wonderful photos, do follow her on Instagram. Those Hawaii photos are stunning, Kecia. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your kernels with us today, and to remind you to keep on popping. And for everybody here that's listening, don't forget to like and subscribe to us on YouTube, and keep your own personal oil heated. And until next time, what's your next pop?